A legendary example of the opposite extreme is forecasting of tornadoes in the American Midwest in the late 19th century by one Sergeant John Finley. Finley claimed his Twisted-Alley tornado forecasts were 96.6% correct. Which sounds terrific until you consider that tornadoes are actually rare. Essentially, Finley arrived at such a high success rate by being very good at forecasting the non-appearance of a non-tornado. In fact, as critics pointed out, tornadoes are so rare that Finley could have increased his forecasting accuracy to 98.2% by simply forecasting no tornado every time. What we want is a forecasting measure that takes account of the underlying probability of whatever is being forecast. The equitable threat score is one such measure. I'll spare you and me the maths, but the ETS is equitable because it adjusts for the cheating that occurs if we just forecast more of whatever happens most often. It's answering the question, how often did it rain when the Met Office said it would, after allowing for forecasts that would have been right by chance. So is an ETS of 0.589 any good? Actually, it's not bad at all, and the Met Office is one of the world's best weather forecasters. But there's no getting around the problem that although rain is a lot more likely than a tornado, it still doesn't rain all that often, even in Britain. Obviously there's a lot of regional variation, but the average for the whole country, on an hourly timescale, is that the probability of rain is about 8%. In other words, if you choose 1,000 hours of weather at random, about 80 of them will be wet. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the Met Office forecasts rain with about 90% accuracy, which sounds pretty good to me. That means that 90% of those 80 wet hours, 72 hours would be forecast correctly. Similarly, the forecast for 90% of the remaining 920 dry hours would also be right. These 828 hours would be correctly forecast to be dry. So far so good, but that leaves 92 hours, 920,828 of dry weather that would be forecast to be wet. Which means that rain would be forecast for 164 hours, 92.72 in every 1,000, but rain would actually fall in only 72 of those hours. In other words, forecasts of rain are right less than half the time, even if rain really is forecast with 90% accuracy. What does all this mean for gardeners looking on the bright side? It's forecasts of rain that are most likely to be wrong, so such a forecast should not deter you from getting out either the watering can or the lawnmower. Ken Thompson is a plant biologist with a keen interest in the science of gardening. He writes and lectures extensively and has written 5 gardening books. His most recent is Where Do Camels Belong? The Story and Science of Invasive Species.